Today I have with me Gerry Marshall. He's the mayoral candidate for the city of Barrie. Hi, Gerry. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and good morning.
Good morning to you too. Yeah, so I want to start a little bit with your past experience, right? So you worked as a mayor of Penetanguishene, a small town, around 9,000 people, I would say, north of Barrie. And you also
Yeah,
worked at, yeah, recently you worked as a warden for Simcoe County. So I just wanted to get you a sense, Barrie is much more bigger city. Uh, so just wanted to get a sense of your past experience and how do you think, can translate into if you get elected as a mayor of Barrie, and also what more you will have to learn uh, to do your job better.
well, thank you. Yeah, so the city of Barrie is probably 10 times the size of the city of town of Penetanguishene, and then the city of Hamilton's 10 times the size of the city of Barrie, and city of Toronto's 10 times the size of city of Hamilton. The reason I said all the issues are the same. So it's about taxes, it's about roads, it's about homelessness, it's about affordable housing. So the difference from municipality to municipality isn't the issues. The issues are always the same. It's the scale that changes. The Simcoe County Warden, so Simcoe County is a population of 500,000 people, so much larger than Barrie. It's 60 municipalities. So, as my role as warden, I looked after 60 municipalities, including providing services here to the city of Barrie and also to the city of Aurelia. So quite familiar with the political lay of the land, what it takes to communicate and what it takes to make change and make life better for our residents.
Yeah, and as a warden, I would like to know more. As a warden, what would you say your major accomplishments were?
Oh, quite a few things. So we kept taxes pretty stable. It was a $500 million a year budget, but nonetheless, taxes went up about 1.5% per year when I was the warden. We introduced new services like transit and economic development department. We created a land inventory so people looking to do business in the county of Simcoe could go online, find what properties are available, how much the property was worth, or how much would it rent for. So we set that up. And the other thing in terms of homelessness, we created a target that we would create 2,685 affordable housing units over a 10-year period. So we committed to that as county council. And here in Barrie, many people are familiar with Lucy's Place, and that was an initiative that I took the reins on and championed through county council to get that development underway on Essa Road here in Barrie, and it's actually put roofs over the heads of some of our hardest to house.
Yeah, that's good to know. And as a mayor of Barrie, there's a lot of communication with the provincial government, with the premier, and we have seen in Barrie the safe injection site. Now, I will get to that question about the safe injection site and drug crisis later. But what I want to understand is, in terms of working with the provincial government, working with the premier. So how would you think you can do that job better?
Yes, so as a mayor and warden, for sure, I was used to dealing with Queen's Park, dealing with the ministers and the premiers, and working Queen's Park, going down to Queen's Park and articulating whatever our cause was of the day in terms of what funding we needed, what projects were special, and acquiring those type of funds. So, over the course of my previous political career, I had some $250 million worth of funding come into our municipalities to make a difference in people's lives. We built roads. I got $180 million to get fiber optic internet services to underserved areas of the province of Ontario. So I had great success going down to Queen's Park. And a lot of my experience there will come up again as the mayor of Barrie. One of the things I found was you really needed to have your plans in place far into the future. So you needed to document and have a business case for whatever projects you were taking underway, so that when the federal or provincial money came available, you had a concrete plan in place that you could submit that application for and be shovel ready. And that made a big difference in how we got the funding.
Okay, great. And talking about now different issues in Barrie, affordable housing and homelessness. that's one of the biggest issue. Just yesterday, I was interviewing a woman who is homeless, and she has been ticketed multiple times, and she got what one more ticket yesterday, and just before uh, the winter is about to begin. So it seems that the city has uh, you know going hard on homeless people just before the winter. We are not sure about what is going to be the housing condition for homeless people. So on these two fronts, right, affordable housing and helping homeless people. So what is your strategy that is different from other mayoral candidates?
Well, first of all, I think right now the county of Simcoe looks after and cares for all of Barrie's homeless population, and that has to change. So that's the county of Simcoe is 16 mayors and 16 deputy mayors from across the area. None of those mayors or deputy mayors live in the city of Barrie. None of them are elected by residents of the city of Barrie, yet they're managing for our homeless. So I want to change that provincially so that the province of Ontario gives City Council of Barrie the mandate to look after and care for our homeless. So that eliminates one layer of bureaucracy that exists today that doesn't need to be there. The other thing with the, we have to have a look at our policies in place. To your point of that young lady getting a ticket yesterday to vacate, where she had her tent encampment set up. We have to stop that. No reasonable person thinks that giving a homeless person a ticket to vacate a premise, only knowing that that person is going to relocate to another part of the city where they're waiting for the next ticket to vacate comes up. So that's just unreasonable, and we have to change that for sure. And then the other thing I look at in terms of homelessness and affordable housing is if you look at the city of Barrie, county of Simcoe, the provincial government, the federal governments, they all own buildings and assets in the city of Barrie, and they're all only 1 or 2 floors high. So I would argue let's build a 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor over top of our own facilities and get more housing out there quickly.
Yeah, and just to clarify that even though Simcoe County takes care of a lot of affordable housing and those issues, City of Barrie has representatives working with the county of Simcoe and on. So when City of Barrie gives the fund as a percentage, and then there are councillors and members from the city who work with the county on that issue as well. And I think you raised this point about adding more floors during the debate as well. And I believe another candidate, Weldon Hatchie, he raised the point that we have to make sure the current buildings are strong enough to support those floors. So we also have to keep that in mind, right?
Yes, no, for sure. So I mean, so when I say build on top of these facilities, so yes, you have to properly engineer them. But what I do on a daily basis right now is I take shipping containers with my son Steve and we create affordable housing units. So I'm used to working with steel infrastructure and understand what the other candidate was saying. But the reality is there's infrastructure and engineering that can be put in place to make it feasible to build on top of our own facilities. There's no doubt in my mind we can do that. Yes, some will cost more, some will cost less. But I would argue whatever it takes to get those facilities ready for a 3rd, 4th, or 5th floor, the cost of that be far less than building something new from scratch or something where you have to buy a brand new property. So yes, it'll be an investment, but I would still argue that it's far faster in the long run for us to build up and far more efficient for us to use our own facilities. We already have the water, we have the waste water, we have infrastructure, we have transit routes. We've already paid the development charges, so it makes sense.
No, that's right. And another issue is is cost of living. So affordable housing is just one part of cost of living. And during the last city council meeting, there was a presentation, and during the presentation, the city underlined that the net disposable income that the residents has gone down, and that has put a pressure on not only on their budget but housing affordability as well. As we know, there's inflation is high, cost of living has gone up. So in terms of city, working with the provincial and federal government, what do you think can be done to ease that burden on people and help them through this inflation and crisis?
Yeah, so it's very tough out there for sure. And I mean, everything you turn around, every time you turn around, the cost of bread's more, milk's more, cost of gas is more. So we need to address that. So we need to, as we plan our city going forward, is we need to have walkable communities so you can walk for your groceries. It's called a 15-minute community, and so everything you have is within a 15-minute reach of where you live. And so we need to create some unique neighborhoods whereby you don't have to travel from one end of the city to the other to get your groceries or to go to school or get to the library or get to where you need to be. So I want to look at things like that. I also want to make transit far more accessible and affordable and convenient. Right now, I was talking to a young lady, and she was at the corner of Essa and Ferndale, catching a bus to go to her job at Georgian College. And it took her an hour and 15 minutes to get from one end of the city to the other. You and I can make it downtown Toronto in an hour. So it makes no sense to me that we have a transit system that's so slow that we need to speed it up. So I'd look at transit in terms of dividing the city into 4 quadrants and then have rapid transit links from one quadrant to the other so that we can go down the 400 high, we can get you over to Georgian College area quicker and save you money, save you time, give you more family time, and lower your transportation costs. So we need to look at creative solutions all the time, and we can't just accept the status quo.
Yeah, and another thing, I was talking to the co-founder of Rise Hope, that started by parents helping in memory of their son Ryan, who died of toxic drug poisoning. And what they do is they go around the city 36 5 days year, and give homeless people breakfast and coffee and other services. And they were talking about how the cost has gone up, and the help they are getting, the donations they are getting is going down. Also, the winter is coming. There's no a facility where they can have the homeless people come inside and serve coffee and breakfast. They serve it out in open. So in terms of those help, what do you think can be done more, especially winter is coming, in terms of providing food and warming centers for homeless people?
Yes, again, so it goes back to my point of getting that autonomy from the city of County of Simcoe into the city's hands. But there's legislation right now in place, and I have to find out where that legislation exists, and we need to change it. So that legislation is preventing people from sleeping in a church basement overnight so they have a warm place to sleep. And so that's unreasonable. We need to have a reasonable discussion with reasonable people to get that changed. We were fundraising for the guest house, and we slept in a church basement as politicians, and we raised money to help the organization and the charity and raise awareness. And so there was 4 volunteers that were awake all night while we slept. So we were not in danger of a fire, in danger of any way, shape, or form. So for some reason, the province and or the city and or the fire regulations have made this change that doesn't allow us to sleep in those church basements. And I would argue that decision needs to be reversed. The second thing the city can do is actually look at our charities. And a lot of our charities, like Ryan's Hope, they're going around to restaurants and other places that have food. And at the end of the shift, they'll get that food that's unused, and they can bring that back. It's still good food, and they can give that to our homeless residents. The challenge for them is, they don't have a vehicle. So, let's fundraise. Let's have the city council look at, maybe providing, providing some capital dollars that can help a group buy a van that allows them to go around and pick up this food. And we have multiple charities undertaking that same type of activity. So all of a sudden, one van serving 3 or 4 groups that benefits, gets a greater amount of food into that van that's distributed to a greater audience is a good thing.
That makes sense. And another, last month I was at the Bike the Night. That was first Bike the Night, where people from Barrie got together, who who has bike, and they took their bike for a ride. So the purpose of the event was to raise awareness, as you said, make the city more walkable, more bike friendly, in terms of lessen the burden on the environment. We know that transportation is one of the biggest polluters. So in terms of climate crisis, in terms of environment, what do you think can be done more in terms of making city more bike friendly, reducing the carbon emission, and protecting the environment?
Yeah, so a couple of things came to mind that council can do early if elected mayor. So one of the things, I think we've probably all seen that social media clip where there's this car parked and it's idling in a 1 minute period. It fills up a balloon the size of a garden shed full of pollution. So we can start a stop idling campaign, which is an awareness campaign to turn your vehicle off when you're running that pizza into the house for delivery, or you're waiting to pick up your child at school, or you're waiting for your wife running into the grocery store. So let's have a campaign that says, stop idling, let's turn our engines off. The other thing we need to help with idling is it's very slow to get from one end of the city to the other. So we need to invest in intelligent traffic light systems that actually see the traffic coming north-south, see the traffic coming from east-west, and then determine based on what the real time, which light should be green and which light should be red, allowing us to get through the city quicker. They did a study in Pittsburgh, and I think they decreased the pollution by about 40% and increased your arrival time, improved it by 25%. So there's one thing we can look at. The other thing is right now the city of Barrie collects about 70% of our food waste goes into the green bin, into the organics where it belongs, but 30% does not. And that 30% in our city represents about 3.5 million tons of food or pounds of food every year going into our garbage stream. So I want to start a food is not waste campaign. So food is not garbage. So you want to make sure that the food waste goes into the green bin and not into your garbage. So there's the little things that council can do right out of the gate. In the bigger terms, I'd like to invest in an employee who thinks nothing but the future, about the environment, about the climate. Because I would argue all of us running for council this term, and there's quite a few, I didn't see anybody there with that environmental or climate background that can really champion a cause, really think their way through this. So I'd like to invest in an employee whose job is singularly focused on the climate and on the environment, and coming back to council with their best advice of how we should engage, how do we move forward, where do we need to be 10 years from now, and get us engaged in that type of path. And that person could also be dedicated to working in the community groups, working with businesses, collaborate and get that whole topic underway. But we need to invest in somebody with the background and the foresight to really help council get to where we need to be as a city.
Yeah, and another contentious issue is policing, right? So when I was talking to the homeless woman, she was talking about a predicament of heavy-handedness of police when it comes to dealing certain situations, and having sometimes there's a mental health crisis. The drug crisis is very closely related to mental health crisis and homelessness. So when there is an emergency, we see police and many times advocates say there should be mental health expert or fire or ambulance. Those services should reach, instead of police who not always have the right tools to address the crisis. So in terms of policing, and also another issue came up, Keenan Alvin, outgoing councillor, was trying to get the funding reduced from the policing, and allocate that funding to other services, homelessness or mental health issues. So in terms of policing, what do you think can be done differently?
Well, I think for one is so we need to fund everything properly. So whether it's our mental health funding or our police funding or our public works department. So what council needs to do is look at all those needs and fund everything appropriately. But I would like to see the province help us out a bit here. So in terms of outreach programs, my wife and I ran a small store in downtown Midland, and we had a homeless population there. in the local health unit had a street outreach team. And so that outreach team walked the streets of town of Midland every day, and they got to know our homeless residents, got to know those with mental health issues, with addiction issues. They got to know the merchants, they got to know the people shopping downtown, and it changed the whole environment to one of everybody being more comfortable, more relaxed, being in one place. And what it did was it reduced the amount of activity that the police had to engage in, because it was a proactive engagement in the community. People knew one another. They knew some of the struggles. They knew sometimes what your triggers would be that would cause you to get upset. So that worked out quite well. In the town of Penetanguishene, we also owned a small store there. And in there, we had the OPP, and they had 2 foot patrol officers. So they got out of their car and they became part of the community. And again, they knew the merchants by first name, our homeless by first name, and our residents and people shopping downtown. And again, that calmed everything. And there was a police presence there. So even though the police were involved, it was not an us versus them. It was not confrontational. It was friendly, it was welcoming, and it was comfortable. And, it took a few weeks to get there for sure. When, the police are walking your main street, everybody has a little bit of tension. But over the course of kind of relaxed and just became part of our community, became part of our well-being. The officers spoke in the schools to talk to school children. So I'm saying that, part of me says that yes, we need to invest in mental health, but also part of me says we need to invest in our police officers by getting them out of their vehicles and allowing them to walk downtown and get to know everybody in that relaxed manner, and being on bicycles and riding the trails and meeting people, making it comfortable, being on our Kempton Felt Bay in the boats and meeting our boaters. All those things matters. It's part of policing, but it's also part of introducing a welcoming environment in which the police are comfortable being in, and which we're all comfortable having the police being in.
Yeah, and in terms of opioid crisis, during the debate organized by Engage Barrie and CARP, you said you are supportive of safe injection site. So there was one approved by the council, but it's still, the proposal is still pending with the provincial government. And we know the stance of the provincial government. MPP Doug Downey opposed, not opposed, but he initiated a review, invited more comments from the residents. And when I spoke to Dr. Simone of Queen Victoria institution, she said, there's a process in place when it comes to opening this safe injection site, and that has been followed rigorously when the site was approved. So in terms of how you think it can be, because experts say that more people will die if we delay opening of the safe injection site. So what do you think can be done in immediately to help the crisis?
Well, I think number one is, so I do support safe injection sites, safe consumption sites, because simply put, as you put, they save lives. There's just too much evidence in front of us that says that is the outcome, is we save more lives if we have these sites. So we have to have the site in place. Now, having said that, I would look at the concerns of the residents in the local area, and they did have concerns, and those concerns should be addressed. They should be answered to: how will the children be kept safe? What are the hours of operations? After somebody injects a drug, what happens next? How are they cared for? How do they exit the facility? Where do they go? What do they do? Those are all valid questions by residents, and they need to be answered. And so I challenge the provincial government to answer those questions. But furthermore, I challenge the provincial government to give us a target date when the site will be open. Because I believe that the site needs to be open for a couple of reasons. Number one is it'll have an impact on lives immediately in that area. But also, my understanding of the legislation is we cannot have a mobile safe injection site that can travel around the city to other parts, other parts to help our residents, unless we have that physical facility in place first. So I would argue, if you're in Ward 10 and you're addicted to using drugs, you're not going to come all the way through from Ward 10 out to Mapleview and Essa to downtown Barrie to inject. That's, I think, an unrealistic expectation. So I'd like to see a mobile unit as well that could help people. not only in our downtown core, but all over the city, because I've been in all 10 wards, and I can tell you without a doubt that we have addiction issues and homelessness issues in all 10 wards. And so we need to have a bigger thought than one physical site on Innisfil Street. We have to have a bigger plan that has a broader, better impact.
And other than the safe injection sites, what else do you think can be done to address the opioid crisis, the drug crisis?
I think, yeah, more, greater police enforcement. I think, and that's not to say our police aren't actively engaged. I see it all the time with joint forces, the OPP, City of Barrie Police, the police out of Newmarket. Everybody's involved, and I think it's a big discussion. But we do have to, engage, and ensure the police are engaged. And from the outside looking in, it's hard to judge, what volume of efforts going on there, but my sense is there's a great deal of effort going on by police forces, across the province, managing this issue and trying to handle this issue. So it's a huge challenge, and it exists in our city. And I think our best source of advice and our best move forward advice would be from the police officers and forces that are involved in this conversation to really share with us. And I think they can tell us so much, but I think maybe what I'd ask the police chief to do in our particular case is share as much as they can and share it more often. I think our city needs to know that we're always engaged in the pursuit of diminishing and defeating drug presence in the city of Barrie.
Yeah, and I talked about Ryan Hope, but there are many more nonprofit charities in Barrie doing great work now. Gilbert Center, Elizabeth Fry Society. We have Busby Center, Barrie Food Bank. So in terms of working with this various charities and nonprofit, because oftentimes when council takes the decision, they don't necessarily have that representation, right? So if you look at the current council, there are only 2 women, and there is no Black or Indigenous representative. But this society and also Barrie Native Friendship Center and other Indigenous centers in Barrie. So in terms of working with these different nonprofit and different charities, how do you see working with them?
Well, I think, I'd use my past experience. So what I did as the former mayor is I met on a regular basis with our charities as a group, and I made sure we were involved in that conversation. And the councils that I was involved with previously weren't as diverse as they should be, for sure. To your point, are we representative at the council table of all, of Barrie proper? I don't think we are. I think there's there's a lack of Indigenous presence. There's a lack of females. So we need to broaden that. So if that, if our diverse community isn't sitting at that 11-member council table, then we have to go out and make sure that we involve with all our cultures and communities across the city to engage and get advice that we wouldn't otherwise have. And so lived experience matters, a different perspectives matters. And I was, at Ryan's Hope yesterday for breakfast, and I can tell you that what a lot of people think happens to our homeless on a daily and nightly basis is not what's actually occurring. There's all kinds of challenges that I became aware of yesterday morning simply by having conversation with people who are actually homeless. So rather than chatting with folks like myself that were employed and maybe on council and having a cup of coffee, challenging ourselves on how to help, we have to go to people that actually have that lived experience. And the Busby Center and Ryan's Hope and Elizabeth Fry, Cornerstone for Recovery, all those groups are dealing with their challenges every day, and what they think about every day is how to make life better for those that are trying to serve. And so we have to make sure that those who are engaged on a daily basis have an input into council, so that when we make decisions, I often say you have to make decisions based on 360 degrees of evidence. And by that I mean you have to look at everything in front of you so you can make an intelligent decision on any given matter. And we need to talk to people to get that input so that I can have the knowledge I need to have to make informed decisions at that council table.
Yeah, and last couple of things. One is about when it comes to for example, a few months back there was an incident in one of the Simcoe County schools where a Black student who she was called N-word, and she was harassed. And when she went out, to get the help, her incident was dismissed. So we know when it comes to BIPOC community, Indigenous and Black people face a lot more discrimination, even within that group. So in terms of addressing those kind of incidents, and I was also talking to Uplift Black founder Shelley Skinner, and what they do is they go around, if they if they are invited by schools, they go into the school and educate the educators, educate the students about creating more awareness about issues facing the Black community. So in terms of working with those two groups, whether it's Barrie Native Friendship Center or other Indigenous group, or Uplift Black or other Black based Black run organizations. So how do you see addressing those issues?
Well, I think you engage with those community groups for sure. And I was at the Parents Against Racism, and they had the survey that they had conducted going on the Simcoe County School Boards. And I think they only shared pages of data at that meeting, but it was staggering, the data that they had in front of them, that the challenges that they're facing, BIPOC children at our high schools and in grade schools. And, we do have one acquaintance of mine that her son, second day of school, was attacked and punched. Second day of school, 2 days into a school year, and already there was a racism engaged undertaking that involved her family, and it disrupted the family to a large degree. Was you could see the pain in the mother's face and the concern and the engagement trying to deal with the school. So, her frustration was very real, and it was proven out by the data on that survey. So, I'm glad to see our communities come together, and Barrie's so diverse. I mean, we speak 104 mother tongues in the city of Barrie. So not dialects, 104 mother tongues. We are a diverse community in terms of where we come from, where we've immigrated from, how we come together. We have different cultures, different religions, different way of lives. We have to embrace that. And so we have to be a welcoming community. And one of the things that we did at the County of Simcoe was we went to our libraries and we had a family tree. We put a big tree up in every family. And then we had invited the community to come in and say, just where was your home country? Where are you from? And all of a sudden you see on this family tree, 10, 12, 20, 30 different countries in your communities living together here in the County of Simcoe. And majority of that population is right here in the city of Barrie. So, we have to recognize our diversity. We have to welcome it. We have to make sure that we engage in a manner that everybody feels safe and comfortable, no matter where you are in the city of Barrie. And I think groups such as Uplift Black and other groups will make a tremendous difference going forward.
Yeah, and this is last one. I was talking to Mayor Jeff Lehman during the flag raising ceremony for the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. And I asked him about the truth of reconciliation and in working with the Indigenous community. And one of the advice he gave to the new mayor and the new council was, don't take this relationship for granted. And that has been too much of taking Indigenous community granted. So in terms of furthering the truth and reconciliation and working with the Indigenous community, working with Barrie Native Friendship Center or other Indigenous organizations. So how would you do that to further reconciliation?
Yeah, I think what we need to do is, right, and I think Mayor Lehman was right, we need to establish a relationship that's more solidified with our Indigenous community. And so certainly, I want a memorandum of understanding of rules of engagement between our communities and a commitment, a protocol agreement, I guess I'd call it, that agrees that we will meet and we'll discuss matters of importance to all our communities, between the First Nation community and the city of Barrie, and especially in terms of land development and planning matters. Our Indigenous communities are often thought of as an afterthought. Send a memo going, we're going to do this, and when we say we're going to do this, we're not really inviting you to give us your input. We're more telling you what we're going to do. So that has to change. We need to have a proper protocol agreement. And then the other thing I'd like to see is the federal government provide funding for our Indigenous communities to be able to engage in these surveys and participate. Because right now they've passed legislation that says that the Indigenous communities have to engage in certain items of planning and development, but there's no funding to help them do that. And so, I talked to the 5 First Nation communities that in around Barrie, they probably need some $1 million to get a proper staff up and running so that they get a volume of input from all across the Ontario that they need to work their way through that paperwork and understand that, and then determine from there, from that volume of paper, what's important to them, what do they need to engage on, and then they have to have the money and the bandwidth and the time and the staff to properly engage. So, we can't just say we want to do something and not provide proper funding, and we can't just say, verbally, what we want to do with our First Nation communities. I think we need a proper protocol agreement that says, here's the rules of engagement, and we all agree upon those, and then follow those rules, and let's get down that path together in a manner that's more structured and formal.
Yeah, and then you talk about the funding. So in terms of attracting, more funding, more businesses, increasing, the revenue base. So, what are your plans in terms of doing that?
Well, a couple of things. Number one is I think council needs to be more involved in economic development. And so I'd like to strike an economic development committee that would have 2 members of council from the northern wards, 1 through 5, and then 2 members of council from the southern wards, 6 through 10, plus the mayor, and come up with a game plan to how to drive the economy. And really why I've just divided the city in north and south is the businesses that you can attract to the north of the city are different than the businesses you'll attract to the south. They are really 2 different demographics, and it really is I guess we're a tale of 2 cities, if I could say that. So we want to make sure we recognize where we are geographically in the city and make sure our plan of attack supports both sides of that, both ends of the city as well. And then I think we need to have a value proposition that we take worldwide and say, we used to have a sign here in the city of Barrie that said well connected. And they took that sign down, and I was always a little frustrated with that because we are well connected. 5 minutes to the north of us, we have Lake Simcoe Airport, which is custom clearance. 45 minutes to the south of us, we have the International Airport in Toronto. We have GO train service back and forth all day to Toronto. We have a Highway 400 series connecting us to all the major centers. And if you think about our customer base, within a 1-hour drive of the city of Barrie, there's 9 million people that we can sell to. Within an 8-hour drive of the city of Barrie, there's 36 million people we can sell to. So we need to set up an environment that lets people know connect all those dots, get that value proposition, and then let's advertise that and market that across Ontario, across Canada, and across the world.
Yeah, that's great. And in terms of we see, there's another candidate, Barrie Ward. He has been, the councillor for, if I can tell, around 20 years, maybe more than that. And then we have, Alex Nuttall, who was, the Barrie City Councillor, and also he was MP from Barrie, Springwater, Oromodanti. So how do you see, what is your value proposition? What do you offer better in terms of, other than these 2 candidates who have, worked extensively in the city of Barrie?
I think, the mayor's role is one of leadership. And so I think of all the group running, I have the leadership skills that nobody else brings to the table. I had a corporate career that saw me vice president of large national companies, managing budgets in $75, $80 million range, staff complements running into the hundreds. So I had a great professional career. And then I'm the only member running right now that was actually ahead of a council the size of the city of Barrie. The County of Simcoe was a $500 million a year budget, and a council in front of me that was 3 times the size of Barrie's. Barrie has 11 members on council. County of Simcoe had 32 members of council. So I had a much bigger council that I had to take a lead role on in managing it. And beyond being the warden of the Simcoe County, I also became the warden of the Western Wardens. So I was the chair of the Western Wardens, which is a group. We looked after 3.5 million people living in 322 communities from the city of Barrie to the city of Windsor. So I'm the one that comes with the background and the professional and political background that nobody else brings to the table. And I think the other thing that I bring to the table is I'm a change agent. So I like to look at things where we are today, where do we need tomorrow, and then engage in a plan to get us to tomorrow's plan. So I have a different mindset. I think I have a different philosophy, and I think I have a different energy level.
That's great. So thank you so much, Gerry, for joining me today out of your very busy schedule. And I wish you luck for upcoming election. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. Have a good day.